Well, I can tell, and I'm just going to be straightforward here. Again, the denial is in full effect. You keeping it
What's
one.
the full effect? Your disregard for the fact I don't necessarily have to agree with
I
you.
don't see why that's relevant, but it is what it is. If you don't mind, when we talk about men of honor, I wanted you to address whether or not you were related to Frederick Douglass. You didn't give a straight answer. The sniff didn't give a straight answer. You did give a straight answer for the murdering of 10% of black boys.
Some convictions to say that I'm not being genuine.
Let me ask you this.
I'm asking you a question, sir. Are you saying I'm not being genuine?
Let me ask you this. When
Are
it
you
comes,
saying I'm not being genuine? Then come on now. Now
when
you're
it,
the BSing now, but you won't even answer me.
okay, there's no need to get like that. You almost kind
Get
of,
what? I'm
you're kind of
not.
behaving like Umar right now. Let me just ask you one last question. Let me ask you one last question. When it comes to men of honor, how do you feel about the financial aspect of this? And I'd outlined that Umar Johnson had said many years ago that he had collected $750,000, and online records showed that the school sold for $400,000. This has been over a year and 2 months since he's still collecting donations. That would have left at least $350,000 remaining. What are your thoughts on that? And then on top of that, the fact that over the last year he has continued to collect donations and there's no renovations that have taken place.
Remiss if I don't, to Mr. Johnson, father of Umar Johnson, who happens to be sitting in our lobby area right now. Had a very powerful discussion with that brother.
I mean, you're free to go, Lennon, if you want. I don't know if Jamal Johnson still wants to come in at the end of this and talk for a few minutes or not. It's up to him.
Yeah, he wants to come in.
All right.
Lennon,
you can either go or you could you will talk to him for a few minutes. It's up to you, Lennon.
Now, you know, if I go, then it's going to be like Lennon. Nah, so y'all gonna put me in a position. Oh, okay.
How you doing, Leonard?
Good. How's it going?
I can't complain. How's the family?
Oh, the family's doing good. How are you? How have you been?
Hey, I'm great, man. You know, just trying to get ready for this shutdown that's going to happen all over this country.
Okay.
You know, this virus thing, and of course, trying to keep us from killing us. That's my number one goal.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm good.
Now I know some things that that motivated you to even come down here to meet with us personally, Mr. Johnson. The floor is yours.
Yeah, hey, Len, I want to ask you something too. When I say something about what you do, I'd like you to know that that doesn't cover everything you do from A to Z. If I don't like something you've done, like let's say I have some constructive criticism or some doubt about something you present, that means I don't agree. And I think everyone's open to disagree with you just as well as those who do agree with you. But that doesn't mean that I sign on to everything that you've done as being wrong. This documentary, which I didn't know I was going to be co-featured in.
It was an important element.
Okay, I mean, you do what you do. You do what you got to do. But I watched it very intensely. I probably watched it about 30 times now. And the part about the documents in reference to the plumber, I mean, people have to take your word for it because you didn't produce any name, addresses, and phone numbers. And I'm sure you wouldn't. But the thing is, a lot of things is built on trust. So I guess people have to trust that you're telling the truth. Whereas I believe that you trust but verify. And that being said, everything that even when you make your assessments, I know you're not, I don't think you're medically qualified to make any assessments on my son or anyone else that should be valid enough for people to just take it and run with it. I think they should also use some of their own discernment in reference to whether you know what you're talking about, number one, and whether they can back it up, number two. That does not in any way is not meant to insult or degrade you, because the bottom line is a lot of us are from the hood, but that doesn't mean that we still see the hood the same way. I mean, people on the West Coast see the hood different than us on the East Coast. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but I believe that. And some of us older people see the world different than some of you younger people. So, I mean, it's just a matter of not necessarily agreeing, but I do think we need to be able to agree to disagree. And I think that's one of our major problems.
Yeah, I don't think that was a question for me. The way I look at it is that there is an issue of denial. And no one in their right mind, in fact, you said it yourself, no doctor in their right mind.
No, I said who in their right mind.
Do I need to pull up the audio?
Go ahead.
All right. And you were referring to your son and him calling for the quote unquote Goonie Goons.
Exactly. I stand by that. I stand by everything I've said.
Yeah. Now, do you think that behavior, just that behavior, we can get into the Mama Oshun blowing off the phone, off the thing, and him saying that that's evidence that his assessment or his theory that Kobe Bryant was murdered by the NBA. That's another example. We can't say that someone who is in his right mind would make that type of a statement.
I would say that people who look at things rationally wouldn't necessarily see that as being something rational to do. But at the same time, I think rationality is determined by how you or those who believe like you see it. And I kind of brought that up, the last time I spoke to you. The people who continue to support a lot of these so-called black leaders out here, who to me haven't given us a darn thing. We have nothing to stand on, that they have been around for 30, 40 years, but still they have a following that just won't quit. Now, does that make those people irrational? Maybe to us they do. It does. But to them, you could not tell them that they're doing anything that's not normal. You understand what I'm saying?
Well, we're talking about your son, and you said it yourself, that behavior is not reflective of someone, it should not be reflective of someone of his educational background, his quote unquote upbringing, etc. So what I'm saying is that you were the one who made that statement. That's why I think it was important for me to include that in the documentary.
And I stick by that statement. I'll say it again, that it was a question. If you go back to the tape, you'll see it said, who in their right mind? And again, I'll go to the fact that a lot of people, as I'm sure you're aware, do things that seem stupid, but they may have an objective that you or I are not aware of. And frankly, with this internet world, I say, you hear what you hear, but you don't believe everything you see. That's just the way I look at it. And like I said, we don't have to agree, but I want you to understand that just because I don't agree with you doesn't mean that if we weren't on this live, that I would be calling you names or name calling or insulting you or degrading you, because that's not what I meant to do. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying too about the wolf in sheep's clothing is the fact that I think a lot, and I told these young men this too, I think a lot of the internet is about likes and views and whatever will attract, just like on TV. But that doesn't discount the stuff that you have shown to come out of my son's mouth. I mean, I'd be a fool to sit here and say that you made these things up. I saw it myself. I spoke on it before you even made the documentary. But one thing you need to understand is that even though you can be praised for how you are as a father and a man, I definitely don't believe that you're in a position to think you know enough about me or any other man to say that we're not this or that. There's some very good parents whose children, unfortunately, have done things that I'm sure they are so saddened to see, but they love them anyway. And I don't think that means that they're in denial. It means that they see what they see, and maybe everything they're not showing you may make you feel they're in denial. But everything doesn't have to be shown on this internet. And I agree with you too, that once I spoke publicly, I opened myself to whatever. But that's what fathers do if they can't find any other alternative or reaching out to their son about behavior that they don't condone.
If I could just respond, the one thing I noticed about you in particular is that to some degree you have made this about you. So when we talk about likes and views, remember, I had made a public statement that I was going to discontinue doing videos on Umar Johnson, but then that's when Umar Johnson, shortly after that, that's when he made the threats of physical violence. He also tried to dox me, which ultimately he attempted to put myself and my family's life in jeopardy, just like he had done with your granddaughter and one of his baby mamas. This to say that at that point, I was willing to let it all go. But once he did that, there was no way that I could let it go. And so simply to say that people do this and that this means that there's sheep in wolf clothing, or wolves in sheep clothing, that somehow it's about likes and views. No, that's not the case in my case. Another way, if we want to use that logic there, therefore we can say that you coming up to the studio here today is an example of someone who's trying to get views, someone who is trying to get likes. I don't look at it that way. So this ought to say, let's be fair in the assessment. Again, my situation was such that I was in a position where I was going to walk away, but because of Umar Johnson's actions, that's when I decided to do the documentary.
I understand that, and I can appreciate that. I'm not going to say on the air how I came to be in this studio today, but it's a kind of unusual situation that caused me to be here. I will say that I don't have a platform where I need likes or that I reach out to people on this level here. This is out of my realm. So, no, I'm not about that. What I am about, and that includes no matter who or what it is what's best for the community. You know, I know for a fact, you know, I don't sign on to everything that I've seen or heard come out of my son. These gentlemen here definitely know it, okay, because of our past history. But the bottom line is, and you say it's about me, it's not about me, it's about our community. And frankly, if I wasn't in the position I am in my community, I probably wouldn't be speaking to you right now or about any of this. But you're right, it does affect our community. And I am concerned about the people it affects, including my own family members who listen to some stuff that I don't think they need to be following. So, no, it's not about me. I truly believe that this is not something that benefits us. And in light of what's going on right now with this tense situation with the coronavirus, this is just another reason for our community to be that much more stressed. And I think that the violence, the negativity, the hostility that we show on these platforms are not beneficial, no matter how it's coming out. And as far as your sincerity and my son's well-being, I question it only because just like, you know, you and I don't agree, and you said that before, I just don't believe it. But that's okay. I'm not saying that to insult you. I'm just stating the fact as I see it. Okay?
All right. While we got you on, Mr. Johnson, I just want to ask you one question. A lot of people want to kind of get you caught up in this whole school scam as well and call you scammers. You've received threats. Just kind of talk about that. One, just ask you, are you involved in the Umar Johnson situation, your son's situation, and just elaborate on the threats and things that you've received as well?
Well, let me say from the beginning, I'm not a fan. I don't have a fan club at all for or against my son. People hate me for what I say against him, and they hate me for what I say for him. You know, so when people say, well, you know, you just out here rah-rah for your son, I don't. I mean, I'm looking at it straightforward as a man who's seen and heard things and have seen and heard things through his life and see where we are today. And so, I mean, I've been threatened by people because of my son, okay? And I've been threatened by people who don't like my son. So, I mean, this is not something that I look forward to doing. But the bottom line is this: one day, all this is going to go away. And he's still my son. So that does not mean I condone what he does. It does not mean I'm denial or ignorant of what I see. I know things that, Lennon, you don't know. And I'm sure you know, you couldn't know everything I know. But just take it for face value that, you know, you being a father, I'm a father. We want the best for our kids. And if I thought I was seeing the best in my son, I wouldn't have gone out to a school and made that video, which I'm sure my son saw, and I'm sure he was extremely upset about. But I'm going to do what I have to do to reach my son. And if I could have reached him any other way, you would have never heard of Jamal Johnson.
Do you believe, I asked you this again, I asked you, you know, when we're out there, that the school will ever open?
I believe that. I believe that the school, as my son has wanted it and stated it to be, probably won't come to fruition as that in that such way, especially with documentaries like this and all the negativity that's sprawling around about it. But I do believe possibly if he were to join with other people and maybe even take their lead on this thing, I really do believe it could possibly come to something not necessarily what he originally wanted it to be.
Mr. Johnson, you came all the way out here amidst all the stuff that's going on, and I want to thank you publicly for that. I really appreciate you coming out here and voicing what you have to say on the platforms. Anything else that you would like to say to lend an honor to people out there? Anything before we depart?
Yeah, the Lennon, to you and everybody else, man. This platform does not give us enough to truly have intimate conversations with people, or to share stuff that we don't know, that we probably should know, that will probably cause us to look at each other differently. So I think when we go and make these statements that sum up everything in 2 minutes or whatever, I don't think it's fair. You know, I don't think I should say anything about you that I can't prove, you know, or that maybe I don't know what's going on behind the scene. I just think we need to be men of distinction and men of honor. And just because I don't agree with everything that you say, which I do agree with a lot that you say, but the parts that I don't agree with, I should be entitled to be able to do that without you feeling that somehow I'm insulting you. I'm not. If I say to you that there should be some doubt about an email, I mean, that's just a trust but verify situation. That doesn't make you a dishonorable person. You know, you just may not have provided enough information for me to say it's the truth. So, you know, if you're getting from me that the stuff I didn't like about the video kind of somehow sheds you to be, for lack of a better word, forthright, then you're wrong. Because 90% of that video was my son. And he said what he said, and he did what he did. And the part that you used for me, I mean, every bit of it. I mean, every bit of it, because I don't want to see my son's dream be destroyed. And to watch it after knowing the time, the effort, schooling that he put into it, it hurts me. But what hurts me even more is to look on the internet and see young men and young women who have been crushed, totally disappointed by another so-called leader or whatever they want to call it. And I looked at one on my way down here today, a young man, and how sad he was of what he thought about my son, who he had been following for years. And I'm saying this not only to you, but to my son. I hope he thinks about people outside of himself and start acting accordingly. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, old dog, if you don't mind, if I can just pose 3 questions.
You know what? Yes,
absolutely.
Go ahead. But
Yeah,
please don't be offended by
Oh no, not at all. Jamal, I'm not. I don't take anything that you said personally at all. It's not like you know. I just don't. I'm just. That's just not me. You did speak of men of honor, and I take that very seriously. Simply because I think that if we are going to change the condition of Black folk in general, that it's going to take men of honor to make that happen. And part of that aspect of honor is to be the preserver and protectors of life. That means that we are to be on the front lines to defend our women and defend our children. That is what a man is to me. Having said that, I just wanted to ask you your thoughts on your son calling for the murder of 10% of Black boy thugs on the corner.
I will repeat what I told you the first time you asked me that question on your show. I was appalled. I was insulted, because my goal now is to stop the killing of us by each other. I told you I reached out to the interviewers of the station that he said that on. And I expressed to them how I felt. And I still feel that way. You know, we're about, I mean, I don't want to use your words, but you're right. We are about preserving life. And it's appalling that anybody would think that we would have to annihilate 10% of the thugs. And I want to verify that. You said all Black boys. He didn't say that. He said the thugs, which is still a disgusting statement. But just have it understood that he said the boys, the thugs on the corner. But that's still, no way am I validating that either. But I'm just saying, he was saying he may have to kill 10% of those guys. I'm saying you should never, ever advocate for the killing of your own people or anyone else for that nature except in self-defense.
If you listen carefully, what he says is that 10% are unreachable, and that this 10%, that is what he would classify as the boys.
But if you look at the context, Lennon, of the whole conversation, he was speaking about the guys on the corner, because he said, you know, when they find out I'm not scared of them, then I can talk to them.
Yeah, I'm referring to the second clip where he kind of doubled down on that. And people, you can go and check out the video. It is clear as day from my vantage point. The second question I'd like to ask, and let me ask you this, to calling for the 10%, murdering 10% of black boys, do you think that that is the rhetoric of a man of honor?
No, I never said that he has been honorable in everything he's done, Lennon. Come on now.
So the answer is no.
Of course.
Okay. The next question I want to ask, there was a part.
In that statement, Lennon, the answer is no. You're right. That's not an honorable thing to say and do.
Okay. When we talk about men of honor, that is also about being honest and being truthful, correct?
I agree.
Are you a descendant of Frederick Douglass?
I will say that, and I'll say this on your show. I will say that since I made that statement, I have done some intense investigating.
And what was that statement?
I said that I had gotten my results back from the Ancestry.com. And I said, based on what I had and what the other gentleman had, who is a direct descendant from Frederick Douglass family, that they were not similar. So he said that as a result of that, we're not related because it would be similar. But since then, I found that not necessarily to be true. And I've talked to genealogists and other people about this because my whole thing was I felt, and I said this on your show, that I was going to finally put this thing in the bag by taking the test. And sure, I was surprised when it didn't come to what I thought it should be and what the gentleman said it should be. But I'm coming to understand that that's not the bottom line. And I'm not trying to cloud the future. If anyone wants to check into it, they can find out about their own family and see that there are more strands to this than just taking a $99 test and calling it a wrap. It's not that simple. And I still stick to that today. And I also said when I took that test that if I found out anything to be different, I will publicly state it. And I have publicly stated that there has been some difference of the final conclusion based on Ancestry.com.
So the answer to the question, is that a yes or no that you are a descendant of Frederick Douglass?
The answer is what I just told you.
Was that a yes or a no?
It's what I just told you. We're right back where we were before, Lennon.
I totally agree with that. Bullshitting is bullshitting. It don't matter who's bullshitting.
That's right.
Let me ask you this. Another thing is that men of honor, we don't bullshit. Let me ask you one other thing. In the documentary, there was a segment inside the documentary.
I don't bullshit. They can investigate themselves if they want to find out what I'm saying is true.
So you are a descendant or no?
I said what I said.
Okay, exactly. All right. Last thing, men of honor. Again, men of honor are also honest and we're sincere. And the official members of Frederick Douglass lineage, they have actually issued public statements that you guys were in fact not descendants. Let me say this. Let me ask one last thing, and then I'll be up out of here. When we talk about men of honor, part of being a man of honor is admitting the truth about where we are at in our lives, but then also where other people are at in their lives. This also includes our own sons. There was a portion inside the documentary where I play a segment of Umar Johnson doing a live stream. And in that live stream, he's talking to a woman and he says, well, hold on. And I'm paraphrasing here. Hold on a second. Let me go turn the heat down. And he gets up and he goes off camera. Mm-hmm. And then we hear this inhalation, as it were. We hear this heavy sniffing followed by a sense of relief. And it sounded something as to the effect of, and then he comes back onto camera shortly thereafter. What were your thoughts about that?
First, let me apologize for using profanity. The past profanity that I just used. My thoughts on that were, it appears from my own life that it appears and it sounds, and I want to fix something else you said. You said his father accused him of being a scammer. You didn't say that in this time, but you said it in the past. I've never accused my son of being a scammer. What I said was Black's Law Dictionary states, based on the way that he's handling this situation, that he's a scammer. Okay, I want that understood. I was speaking from the dictionary's term of what a scam is or fraud or whatever the case may be. I have not and I will not call my son what anyone else wants me to call him until such time as I see enough validation for me. That's not saying that he's not. He may be, but I haven't had enough for me. Does it mean that I sign on to what he's doing? Heck no. But that's still not for me to say he's a scammer because I don't know the ins and outs and everything about any of this money. But I'm sure in the end it'll all come out. So our sniffing, what sounded to be sniffing to us off camera, it sounded like sniffing.
Okay, well, what do you mean by that, sir?
I mean, it sounded like he inhaled something. I don't know if it was drugs. I don't know what it could have been. You know, who knows? Maybe he did that. I don't know. I wasn't there. I'm just being frank. Now, I mean, if you don't like that, I'm sorry, but that's the truth.
Well, I can tell, and I'm just going to be straightforward here. Again, the denial is in full effect. You keep it
What's
one.
in full effect? Your disregard for the fact I don't necessarily have to agree with you, and I don't have to be in denial because I just believe.
And I understand. You're his father. And again, this gets back to what
Black
I pointed.
Country doesn't like black people to be preyed on or to be used as flunkies any more than you do, Lennon. I don't like it. I hate it. I hate it.
Yeah, like I was going to say, again, this is your son, and sometimes it's a little bit more difficult. I think in many cases it's more difficult for it to admit the truth that is right there.
My man, let me know. When you get the MD, let me know.
For us to come to the truth of what is clearly evident.
What I do like about this platform, Lennon, is that you don't control it. I want you to know that.
I don't know what you're saying. I think you're.
You cut me off on your platform when I tried to say something to you. You muted me out. You told me you would shut me down if I kept talking. You know, not that I was going to offend you in any way, but you didn't want to hear what I had to say. But now you don't have that control. That's all I was saying.
I don't see why that's relevant, but it is what it is. If you don't mind, when we talk about men of honor, I wanted you to address whether or not you were related to Frederick Douglass. You didn't give a straight answer. The sniff didn't give a straight answer. You did give a straight answer for the murdering of 10% of black boys. Let me ask you this: when it comes to the financial,
basis to say that I'm not being genuine.
Let me ask you this.
I'm asking you a question, sir. Are you saying I'm not being genuine?
Let me ask you this: when it comes,
I'm not being genuine. Then come on now. Now you're the BSer now, but you won't even answer me.
Okay, there's no need to get like that. You almost kind of you're kind of behaving like Umar right now. That's interesting.
Here we go. See, this is what you did on your platform.
Here we go.
I'm very well controlled myself. Believe me.
Okay, well, please continue to do so. Let me just ask you one last question. Let me ask you one last question. When it comes to men of honor, how do you feel about the financial aspect of this? And I'd outlined that Umar Johnson had said many years ago that he had collected $750,000, and online records showed that the school sold for $400,000. This has been over a year and 2 months since he's still collecting donations. That would have left at least $350,000 remaining. What are your thoughts on that? And then on top of that, the fact that over the last year he has continued to collect donations and there's no renovations that have taken place.
Well, let me say firstly, and I'm sure this gentleman can tell you, I came in here with a pretty congenial attitude. Mm-hmm. I still have one. I had no reason to feel any way but that. But I will be heard if I'm feeling I'm being disrespected and someone won't let me speak if I let them speak. But to go further, I think the whole thing monetarily has been mishandled. It obviously appears that way. You know, I've spoken about the lack of transparency from the door. And I'm going to bring this up only because he knows I got to put him on blast, my man on the right here. Because he and I got to know one another from him seriously cheerleading for my son when I used to tell him, no, you need to just give it time before you jump on the bandwagon. So, I mean, you know, there's a lot of things I don't like, Lennon, especially with people's money. And especially these days of time, man, with this virus thing going on and people being put off out of work, if they're still sending him money, that means they're giving him their last. So I don't know what's going on with this money. I don't know what he's done with it. I don't know what he plans to do with it. All I know is that things need to come to a screeching halt, like yesterday, so that he can, number one, get credibility back into the community that believes in him or has believed in him. And number two, so that people can feel confident about where the money is or where it's gone. That's what I think about it.
Okay, 750,000, online records show 400,000. There should have been at least $350,000 remaining going back a year ago. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, to be frank with you, and I'm gonna be honest, he had 750,000 from his own words over a year ago.
Yeah.
He flashed some donations the other day. 1 and 1 has always been 2. So I'm sure 750 plus, and that plus is a big question mark. So I don't think we need to throw that number around anymore.
Yeah, and I was referring to when he actually made that statement of 750,000. That was the last update that he gave.
Right.
And then, of course, in February of 2019, he had acquired the building for 400,000. That should have left at least 350, or that should have left 350,000. We could even say 300,000. Your thoughts on where that money might be?
No clue, man. No clue at all.
Okay, and then one last thing, in terms of since he acquired the building, he's been collecting donations consistently. Where has all that money gone?
You talking like I know. I never claimed to know where the money is, my man.
Yeah, and this is just to illustrate the point that no one knows because there's no transparency, and this is why the scam has been effective for the last decade.
And okay, so we all know that, I think.
So your son is a scammer?
We all know that you feel that the scam has been in effect because of lack of transparency. We all know that. Oh yeah, I gotta watch you, man.
Oh man, definitely, man. We appreciate y'all, man. I'm looking at the time. I was supposed to have a movie night at 8:00. My kid,
Oh man,
like, yo,
I got
dad.
an hour and a half ride back.
Hey, dad. Hey, yo, what we doing, dad? I know you got the podcast, but yo, dad, what we doing? Yeah, I appreciate everybody on the panel. Lennon, Nana, I appreciate you. We appreciate you. We know you got your show going on at 9. I won't be checking it out live. I'm be chilling with the kids.
do what you got to do.
Check that out later on. Mr. Johnson, appreciate you traveling all the way down here. The people in the chat room, the moderators. Oh God, of course. If you ain't got anything else, man, we can wrap this on up.
Can I say one last thing?
Absolutely.
Of course.
Everybody,
Of course.
please, in light of this coronavirus, do not believe the fallacy that black people can't catch it. Black people have caught it. Black people have it right now. Very well-known celebrities. So that's a fallacy. Number 2, please practice safety. Practice safe precautions with this virus. Don't think that because that's your family, you can't catch something from them because that's your family. That's ignorant. People are dying from this virus, and we got to get real about it. And if we don't, there's going to be a lot more of us dying because of our ignorance. I appreciate that, man.
Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Well, we're coming to an end of the program today. Everybody that's in the audience right now, smash that like button and make sure that you follow both of these brothers, Lennon Nana and Jamal Johnson, on their platforms if you want to keep up with them. That's all I got on my side of the table, Sam, man.
Yeah, that's all I got too, man. We're going to get up out of here. Stop paying these bills. Shut the lights off. Y'all guys stay safe out there during this quarantine day number 6. Check out Lennon Honors live stream coming real soon. Go check out Mr. Johnson on his platforms.
Yeah.
Sandman, Viral Hip Hop News. Oh, God, Hip Hop News Uncensored. Together, we are the Hip Hop Uncensored podcast. Over and out.